starting.
So on behalf of NIFA, I would like to welcome you all to our webinar today addressing the different climate change RFAs that have been published and the programs that are available for those of you who are interested in applying. As you know, climate change is one of the priorities of not only USDA, but of this administration. And NIFA is heavily involved in a lot of initiatives in this area. So today is a chance for you to learn more about the different offerings NIFA has as a researcher, extension person, or an educator. If you are interested in pursuing activities in the climate change areas, this is the place for you to come. This webinar today is going to be recorded. We will also share information with you regarding the contacts for the different programs and other resources that are available. With that, I will pass it on to our national program leaders who are responsible for the programs to actually talk to you about them. We will have a significant portion of Q&A. So if you have any questions, please hold on to them or write them in your chat. You will have an opportunity to have all of them answered. With that, Amy, if you would want to take over and go ahead with the webinar.
We could advance the next slide. Catherine, why don't you go ahead and get started?
Yes, thanks, Amy. My name is Catherine Bonner, and I'm a program specialist here at NIFA. And climate change has definitely been on the forefront of this administration's priorities, and the agricultural community has been identified as an important player in combating the climate crisis. So next, Bethany will touch on USDA's strategic goals as they relate to climate change and how NIFA is aligning with that effort. So Bethany.
Hi, yeah, good afternoon. My name is Beth Crable, and I am a program specialist with NIFA. So USDA has recently came out with a strategic plan that highlights the opportunities and the challenges that face our communities. So these cross-cutting priorities are all encompassing, as you can see here on the slide. However, today our topic of interest will be discussing climate change and how USDA-NIFA supports research into mitigating climate effects and enhancing climate smart agriculture. If we drill down within the first priority that we have highlighted there, the first priority of climate change, we can see that there are diverse ways of combating the climate change and climate impacts. So through climate smart agriculture, adaptation, preservation of water resources, we reduce greenhouse gas emissions and increase carbon sequestration. These are all things a part of the strategic plan that USDA-NIFA would support in research, education, and extension.
So here at NIFA, we aspire to be leaders, driving innovation in research, education, and extension to bring about climate smart agriculture and forestry systems. Specifically, we see our role as supporting the scientific community to fill knowledge gaps and to identify opportunities for transforming our food and fiber systems. We want to spur innovation and accelerate change in food, agriculture, and forestry. We want to empower individuals and communities to mitigate and adapt to climate change. We also see opportunities at NIFA to explore synergies across the diverse priorities of this administration. Next slide, please. And so today during this webinar, we're calling attention to 3 climate-focused programs: USDA's Climate Hubs Partnership, Sustainable Agroecosystems, and Rapid Response to Extreme Weather Events. where we will give an overview of the program and highlight awarded projects if applicable. We'll touch on NIFA's data gateway system, which is also known as Enterprise Search, where you can find information on research, education, and extension projects that have already received grant funding from NIFA. And so throughout this webinar, please feel free to add questions to the Q&A box. And then after the presentation, we'll answer written questions first and then take live questions from participants. So I'm going to turn it over to Lydia, who will get started on our first program.
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine, for that introduction. My name is Lydia, and I'm with the Institute of Food Safety and Nutrition, and I'm going to speak to you about the Extension Education USDA Climate Hub Partnership, which is coded as A1451, an AFRI program. This program requests applications for projects up to 1.5 million for 3 to 5 years. These projects have to be extension projects or integrated, which means they have to have an extension and an education component to the project. Then we also have a CAP project, which is a coordinated agricultural project, which we will talk about in a minute. So the grant types for this program are standard and phase, which is strengthening standard, and new investigator grants. This year, the application deadline for this program is October 6th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can contact me if you have any questions about this program. I will also be sharing in the next slide. Next slide, please. All the other program contacts that we have for this program. This is truly a cross-cutting program with cross-institute team members who have diverse disciplinary expertise. We have Enif with Sustainable Agricultural Systems, Adam Wilkie with Social Science. We have Andres with Animal Science, myself in Nutrition. Erica has Entomology expertise. Dr. Thompson has the Agricultural Systems and Crop Production expertise. And if your projects are about 4-H or positive youth program development or workforce development, then you would contact Maurice Smith. And we have Charlotte Taro, who has expertise as an economist. So this program is run across institutes. So welcome to that team, and please reach out to them based on the expertise that you require. Next slide. So a little bit more about the program. The Climate Hubs Partnership Program Area Priority supports projects that provide effective, translatable, and scalable approaches to address climate change through regional partnerships using USDA Climate Hubs and extension. And an example of extension is the cooperative extension service, but it's not the only type of extension service that would apply for this type of project. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this USDA Climate Hub so that we are aware of where they stand. Next slide, please. So this program has a unique collaboration with USDA agencies. The USDA Climate Hubs are 10 regional hubs led by Agricultural Research Service, ARS, the Forest Service, USFS, and Natural Resources Conservation Service, NRCS. USDA Climate Hubs have a vision for robust and healthy agricultural production and natural resources under increasing climate variability and change. The mission of Climate Hubs is to develop and deliver science-based region-specific information and technology to agriculture and natural resource managers in order to synthesize data and science to develop tools and technology and provide outreach and engagement for those technologies and tools within their different hubs. So this program, the intent of the program, next slide, the intent of this USDA, this partnership, therefore, is to have the regional partnerships with USDA Climate Hub and Extension. And this partnership would have the goal of a net zero emission agriculture in the region, working land adapted to climate change, have a diverse workforce that can effectively communicate about climate change with a variety of stakeholders, which is this piece of extension, and can incorporate climate consideration into managing working lands. The other goal is to make climate justice a priority and ensure equity in opportunities, especially for the most burdened communities. There is a broad emphasis area in this program, especially when it comes to the training, and specifically to the area of food safety and nutrition. We like to talk about training on climate smart food systems, including effects of climate on nutrition security and the components of food nutrition density specifically, as well as food safety and food waste. Next slide, please. I'm going to talk a little bit about the CAP project, the Coordinated Agricultural Project for the Climate Smart Agriculture. This is a 10 million CAP, and with a goal of having a national climate smart extension initiative. This program would fund an entity that would help to connect and extend national and regional extension programs, creating community-based and culturally appropriate approaches to climate smart agriculture and forestry practices, mitigating agricultural grain gas emissions, and building resilient food systems and nutritional security in rural and urban communities. Next slide, please. As I was saying, this program has a large and broad emphasis because we also have, as you saw, a variety of expertise that could apply for this program. But I would just like to emphasize on the training, the K-12 teacher or extension education training for climate learning, public and private sector technical service provider training, climate smart food systems training, specifically for food waste, nutrition security, and matters of that nature. And then we are also interested in projects that would work on programming for underserved or underrepresented groups that consider and also considers the literacy and language skills as a barrier to learning about climate and climate change. As I conclude my presentation on this program, I would like to talk a little bit about projects that were funded last year. So next slide, please. In our inaugural year of 2021, this program funded 6 projects at about $9 million. We had 9 from the 8 regional climate hubs, and you can see where the stars are. These are where these projects landed in the different hubs, and this map is of the regional climate hubs. 8 of the submissions included the climate hub, as you can see here. So there were 5 awards led by academic institutions. 1 was led by the Caribbean Climate Hub. 3 were led by extension projects, and 3 were integrated extension and education projects. Just very briefly, I'll talk about 2 of those projects, just so you know where some of them are. So our next slide, please. We'll talk about one of them that was funded the Caribbean Climate Hub, was titled Enabling Climate Smart Decisions for Agriculture and Forestry in the US Caribbean. This was an extension project which had aims or goals of developing and delivering regional and sector-specific climate information, and train the trainer materials in both Spanish and English. And some of the actions were to support adoption of adaptation and mitigation practices that reduce greenhouse gas emissions, sequester carbon, and build resilience. The next one that I would like to talk about is the native climate, strengthening the role of climate hubs in Indian country. The Institute of Food Safety and Nutrition is very aligned with this program, with this project, or the work of this project. This project is led by Dr. Maureen McCarthy, who works with the Desert Research Institute and collaborated with the University of Nevada, Reno, University of Arizona, University of Montana, Southwest Climate Hub, and the Northern Plains Climate Hub for this project. This particular proposal puts community at the center of solutions for climate change and food and nutrition security while improving the connection between people and the food system. It has the goal of expanding the capacity of USDA Climate Hub to serve the climate and serve as a climate clearinghouse of tools and technologies to support climate resilience planning and actions for the tribal agricultural producers in the Intermountain West. So these are just two of the projects that were supported last year. We have other projects all in our CRIS links, our publicly published, so you can always look out to those or reach out to the national program leaders in your area of expertise. Next, I will welcome Dr. Wilkie to speak about the Sustainable Agricultural Systems program.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining. My name is Adam Wilkie, and I'm a National Program Leader with the Institute of Bioenergy, Climate, and the Environment in the Division of Global Climate Change. Today, I'm going to share some details on Program Code A1451, Sustainable Agroecosystems, Health, Function, Process, and Management. This program is part of the Bioenergy, Natural Resources, and Environment Program Area, one of 6 Agriculture and Food Research Initiative program areas outlined in the 2018 Farm Bill. The 5 images on the slide are photos of the NIFA staff providing support for this interdisciplinary program. I would like to point out the range of expertise on this team. I'm a rural sociologist by disciplinary training, and much of my work has been applied in corn-based cropping systems. We also have expertise ranging from, no pun intended, rangeland science, forestry, and human dimensions of livestock production. Next slide, please. So quick outline of the 1451 program code area. The budget request limit is $650,000 total per project. However, there is an opportunity for $800,000 with specific partnerships. Those partnerships opportunities were outlined in a webinar on May 9th that has been recorded and you can view. Important note for 1451 is that project types are research project only. However, there are several grant types, including standard, phase is the Food and Agricultural Science Enhancement Grant, Strengthening Standards, seed grants, and conference and equipment grants, which I'll touch on more later. Application deadline is September 15th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Next slide, please. A quick program snapshot. As I mentioned, research projects only. The intent of this program is to look at diverse systems that are managed for agricultural production. That being said, the focus is on the intersection of ecosystem health and production, emphasizing ecosystem services, and strongly encourage interdisciplinary work that intersects biophysical and social sciences. Next slide, please. 1451 accepts a full spectrum of research projects. The image on this slide represents a suite of potential topical areas, which I've already mentioned, ranging from forests, rangeland, conventional crops, and also specialty crops and products. Really, there is no agricultural production system that is out of line for the 1451 program code area. Next slide, please. And a little more program area detail. The intent is the improvement of ecosystem health and productivity in managed systems currently under stress. The key point to note in the context of climate change, as we know, climate is one of the primary stressors, on agricultural production currently, and as such is an important topical focus area of this program. Second detail, the intent is to advance scientific understanding of processes and interactions among ecosystems and agricultural systems. And third, new management or conservation practices with a focus on ecosystem services are of particular interest for this program. Next slide, please. A little more information taken directly out of Foundational and Applied Sciences RFA language. This program is to advance the frontier of innovative strategies to maintain or improve productivity while also enhancing ecosystem services. So that includes approaches that increase ecosystem health and resilience along with output or value of more than one ecosystem service. Also connecting ecosystem health to production system functionality, productivity, socioeconomic viability, sustainability, biodiversity, and the production of other ecosystem services. Next slide, please. One A1451 project that I would like to provide an example is very timely. It is actually occurring this week and may be of interest for some of the attendees on the call. The image on the top left is the logo for AgMIP, the Agricultural Model Intercomparison and Improvement Project. And the image on the bottom is an actual screenshot of the public-facing NIFA data gateway, the information that you would see if you searched for this project. And we will also be sharing some tips and tricks for searching Data Gateway later on in this webinar today. The interesting thing to note with conference and equipment grants specifically is they are accepted and encouraged on an ongoing basis. There is no deadline, and they're a great avenue to receive resources to advance the frontier of agricultural research, education, and extension. Thank you. Next, I'll pass it over to Amy Ganguly. Thanks, Amy.
Excellent, Adam. Thank you very much. And so now we're going to talk about a brand new program that we've developed for this fiscal year, which is a rapid response to extreme weather across food and agricultural systems. Next slide, please. A little bit of information about this program. This is different than the other programs you heard about because we accept proposals on a rolling basis. As the name suggests, we're trying to create a unique program where we can get funding to people when they need it, and specifically to address issues in near real time. The budget for individual projects is up to $300,000, and the period of performance for these awards would be 12 months. You could submit either an extension only proposal or an integrated research and extension proposal. We had a cap, but for this priority area, but the cap is already closed. So I'm going to focus on these two components. So again, rolling applications, they must be submitted within 21 calendar days of an event, and I'll touch on that in a second. Next slide, please. So common theme to the other programs you heard about today, we have an extremely diverse team to address this. And our division director worked for NOAA and was on the front lines of many weather-related disasters. Ashley Mueller is she specializes in disaster response. Myself, I am an agroecologist, and Michelle Colby deals a lot with biosecurity and related programs. Next slide. So let's learn a little bit about the program. So the rationale we had when we developed this program just centers on the fact that we know climate change exacerbates the risk of extreme weather disasters. And these are caused by naturally occurring hazards, specifically using this word hazard, such as droughts, heat waves, wildfires, tornadoes, floods, hurricanes, tropical storms, and blizzards. We know that these often disrupt agriculture, forestry, and rangeland production systems. We often immediately see the resource degradation from extreme weather events. However, the entire supply chain is adversely impacted. And this illustrates the critical need for innovative extension and applied research efforts. I just want to briefly mention NIFA has several programs that deal with disaster related work, and those are often clustered under the FADI Eden suite of programs. And so this one is specifically intended to fill the gap in what those aren't necessarily addressing, and again, to deal with those near real-time issues. So next slide, please. So with this program, we strive to deploy funding in a very rapid manner so that people can respond in the and provide information for short and long-term recovery, mitigation, preparedness across the food and agricultural system. As we look at the purpose, we want to provide funding to fill knowledge as well as critical information gaps. And it's intended to focus on our food and agricultural supply chains and the people who support them. We intend to see projects that buffer disaster impacts and ensure the availability of safe, nutritious, and affordable food for everyone. And I mentioned that the letters of intent for this program, so this program does require letters of intent. We require that they are submitted within 21 days of an incident, but that we don't go by national declaration, state declaration, or county declaration. The onus is on the individual to justify why their event would warrant this kind of funding. And so that's really critical to note. Also important, this does not preclude ongoing events like drought. So again, the justification is placed on the shoulders of the people who are applying to this program. Next slide, please. So our intent with this program is to fund projects that provide solutions that can be readily adopted. And so because of that, we are looking for projects that articulate how they can hit the ground running, as well as start to show some progress and potential impacts within 3 to 6 months of project initiation. So we expect a variety of innovative approaches to extension projects, and of course the integrated extension and research, and these would include, but certainly are not limited to, trainings and exercises, communication strategies, tools and technologies, presenting information on management strategies, as well as logistics. Next slide, please. So now that I've given you that brief orientation, just a couple of critical details about the program. This is designed to focus on critical and urgent solutions in rapid response to disasters, weather-related disasters. So we require that people clearly describe the short-term deliverables within 3 months of award receipt. We also ask that people clearly define the geographic scope of the project related to the weather-related event or disaster. We have crafted 3 focal areas for this program, which include agroecosystem resilience, commodity and nutrition security, and health, well-being, and safety. Next slide, please. So on this slide and in the chat box, I'm going to go ahead and put a link to the website that we've created for this program. On this, you're going to find a wealth of information. We have created four videos that explain the program in greater detail, as well as provide you very helpful information in terms of how to prepare your applications. We have fact sheets and recorded webinars that we've already done. So please check this program out and certainly reach out if you have any questions. Next slide, please. So I wanted to provide just a really brief summary of what you heard today. We highlighted only 3 programs that directly address climate change, and this is under our foundational and applied science request for applications. This is just one component of our climate portfolio. For those people that are aware of our sustainable agricultural systems, RFA, we have a very large component addressing climate smart ag and forestry. We also have our educational and workforce development RFA, which also has a lot of emphasis components on climate change related projects. So one, I just wanted to remember, these are just 3 programs that directly address. However, there are many, many programs within NIFA that indirectly address climate, or where a direct climate program can fit under, and I'll touch on that in a second. But just the greatest tip I can give you is that if you have any questions or any doubt whether or not a program would fit a particular area, please reach out to the national program leaders that are listed associated with that program. We have several NPLs listed on most of our programs, and so reach out to them and you know, see what they have to say about your idea. Next slide. So how can you find, how can you do some sleuthing on your own? I want to introduce a tool to you, which is the NIFA Data Gateway, also known as our enterprise search. Next slide, please. So we have the link for the NIFA, the enterprise search on the slide, and we'll drop it as well in the chat box. But this is an outstanding resource for you to do a deep dive on our specific programs, or more broadly speaking, on some keywords that might be helpful for you to see some trends in work that we are funding. So when you get to the enterprise search, you're going to see a dialog box like this. And what we did is, just as an example, we put the program code for the program that Adam Wilkie just presented on, A1451, which is that Sustainable Agroecosystems program. If I clicked the box right below that, it would allow me to select which fields I wanted to specifically search under. And in this case, I selected program code, and I'll show you the results here in a second. I do want to mention, though, you can search in many different ways. You can search by keywords. You can also search by institution. What a great way to learn how to write a successful publication, or sorry, a successful proposal, by reaching out to some of your colleagues at your institution who have clearly identified the winning combination for their proposal. So next slide, take a look at what the results would be if we had done this search. We're just showing you the first 3 lines of the projects that are just associated with that A1451 program. Again, very useful. On these, you can click on the boxes here, and it'll take you to quite a bit of information about those programs. So again, a wonderful way, if you schedule a meeting with a national program leader, do a little bit of research and ask those questions. I also noticed that one of the questions in the box was really directed about a specific program or a specific project, and what program it might fit with. This is where I would recommend that you use some of those critical keywords in your search to help identify that. Next slide, please. All right, so thank you for your attention, and I just want to touch on our non-discrimination statement. In accordance with federal civil rights law and USDA civil rights regulations and policies, the USDA, its agencies, offices, and employees and institutions participating in or administering USDA programs are prohibited from discriminating based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, gender identity, including gender expression, sexual orientation, disability, age, marital status, family or parental status, income derived from a public assistance program, political beliefs, or reprisal and retaliation for prior civil rights activity in any program or activity conducted or funded by USDA. Remedies and complaint filing deadlines vary by program or incident. This slide contains contact information for individuals with disabilities to request reasonable accommodations, and we can provide language access services to limited English proficient individuals upon request. And finally, anyone wishing to file a complaint can utilize the phone number, fax number, or postal mailing address listed on this slide. Next slide, please. So with this, I want to turn it back over to Rubella, who started us off.
Thank you, Amy. And thanks to all the speakers today. For everyone who is listening, we will have a Q&A section, and we thank you all for your attention. We do see questions coming in, and we will try to address them the best we can. Since you've had an introduction to some members of our climate change team, and as Amy said, it is not only these programs. Climate change as an entire priority is spread out across multiple programs. It depends on what you want to work on and where you would be able to fit. So as you've gotten to know people, I'll just quickly introduce myself. I am the Division Director for Plant Protection associated with the Climate Change Priority Area. And with that, I would also like to introduce our leader, Dr. Kevin Kephart, who is a Deputy Director for the Institute of Bioenergy, Climate and Environment. And I'd like to invite Kevin to just say a few words before we go into the Q&A and discussion. Kevin, if you're here and would.
Thank you very much, Rubella. And I want to thank the team that you've heard from during this session. So Lydia, Adam, and Amy, thanks for a great job and for introducing these wonderful opportunities that we have for academic research extension efforts that are very important to climate smart agriculture and forestry and climate change issues as well. I do want to point out that as we were preparing NIFA last autumn for the next AFRI RFA that you have before you now, we did an extensive effort to align that particular funding opportunity or the many funding opportunities within it with several of the administrative priorities, including climate change. And there are some others in there as well: nutrition security, diversity, equity, and inclusion, market opportunities, those types of things. Now, I've gone through repeatedly through the RFA, and if you look through it, you'll see that all 6 of the priority areas within AFRI have highlighted opportunities for climate in them. It's not just restricted to these particular programs that we heard about today, but they're actually embedded throughout the RFA. And so just want to encourage you to download that RFA, look through it, read it carefully, maybe even use some word searches for terms that you're especially interested in. And I'm sure that you'll find opportunities that fit your career and what it is that you're looking for. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Rubella. Thank you for joining us today. I'm very pleased that we're having these discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. With that, I would open it up to the team to address some of the questions.
I think we can start on the first question that is in the Q&A box. It states, I would like to write a proposal on the microorganisms and methane production and assimilation isolated in rice paddy fields. Which program is the best for me to submit a proposal?
Hi, Catherine. I'll take that question. And thank you very much for submitting this question. We would need a little bit more information to tell you what program would be the best fit, because depending on the route, the justification and rationale provided associated with this work, it could fit in a couple of different research or a couple of different of our programs. So my recommendation is to utilize the NIFA Data Gateway resource that we highlighted and identify a couple and reach out to the national program leaders to discuss that. But it could fit in a couple of different areas.
Thank you, Amy. The next question is from Julian. Are there any pros or cons to leveraging past or current NIFA funded projects, for example, a previously funded and finished CAP project, in any of these climate RFAs, especially if there's synergies?
I can go ahead and address that question as well. So thank you for that question, Julian. And so absolutely, if there is an opportunity to build on a platform of work, I think that that's always really compelling. And that's why people may notice in our RFAs, we encourage people to specifically look at leveraging the long-term data associated with the LTER, the LTAR systems, NEON, these other resources to look at collaborating with other entities like the climate hubs who have been in existence for a while. While just being associated or building on a previous project is not going to give anybody bonus points, one could argue if it's a well-conceived proposal, you're building on something that is really going to hopefully yield success. And I would just say that generally speaking, we would like to see something new, not just the same old, but what new questions are being addressed and why would that funding be necessary to achieve those objectives?
And if anyone does have any questions, feel free to raise your Zoom hand and then we can unmute your microphone. Let's see, I see one in the chat actually. It says, will multi-institution proposal get advantages over single institution proposals? Someone like to tackle that one?
Catherine, I will attempt to tackle that question. My name is Lydia. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. So thank you for that question. A multi-institution proposal is going at a particular question that is going to be probably a regional type of goal to achieve something or do some research or have an extension project versus a one institution. I think it really is based on what program you're applying for and what program goals you have. Some of those RFAs will be very specific as to what kinds of partnerships would be preferred or would have an advantage for an applicant. And so I would ask that you read the RFA real well. And if you're working with others that would provide a synergy or work at the same goal together, that is always an advantage as well, not just for the application, but for the region.
Thank you, Lydia. We have another question from Clint. In regards to the Rapid Response to Extreme Weather Events program, how do pasture lands and forests weigh in comparison to crop-based systems when these applications are considered?
Thank you for that question. No system is given any preference. It really, the one thing, and this goes across all of our programs that we highlighted, and just in general, good proposal writing practices, be responsive to the RFA. And we are inclusive of all those systems. And so there is no, there's no specific preference given.
Thank you, Amy. And then Mark asks, multiple global meta-analyses indicate that organic production systems can enhance soil carbon sequestration and agricultural resilience. Research leads indicate that organic systems have potential to improve nutrient management and greatly mitigate nitrous oxide emissions. Do review panels for the 3 featured NIFA programs and other AFRI RFAs give due consideration to proposals related to best organic management as an avenue toward climate-friendly and resilient agriculture and food systems.
I can chime in on that one. This is Adam Wilkie. Thank you for that question, Mark. And I'll just explain a little bit about the NIFA panel review process and exemplify that, yes, we absolutely do incorporate perspectives from all regions, all agricultural types, and try to get as many different perspectives and viewpoints on management systems in our NIFA panels as possible, just to increase the extent to which the merit of the proposal is considered within the existing body of scientific evidence to help our panel make the appropriate recommendation on how to advise funding that specific proposal. So great question, and I'll defer to anyone else on the panel to continue on that topic. Thank you.
The next question is from Aaron. Given the significant controversy over long-term carbon sequestration potentials in agriculture, are there any initiatives where the USDA-NIFA plans to systematically research carbon sequestration potentials by crop type, for example, across all major crops?
So one thing I just want to specify is that, so at NIFA, we don't do research, we fund research. And so, you know, I want to say that there are many places where either individual components of that question or the more comprehensive iteration of that project can fit, right? But there are other USDA programs that research like that could also fit. Say, for example, the Climate Smart Commodities Program, or some of these other resources.
Are there any questions that should be answered live? Anyone want to come off mute? Please raise your hand. Don't see any other questions in the Q&A box right now.
One thing I'll say, Catherine, as we give people a chance to submit any other questions, you might notice in the chat box, we just included a link for our peer review system volunteer form. So serving on panels is one of the best ways to prepare yourself to write a competitive proposal if you are just new to the proposal submitting part of your career. And also just it's a really exciting opportunity to come together to help NIFA make wise choices of their investments in work like climate change. And so please go to that link if you haven't registered. We would love to have you register. If you are interested in a specific program, please reach out to those NPLs so they can make note of your interest. Any other questions? All right, Rubella, we'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Amy. And I would like to echo upon Amy's comment of our request to you, if you are an expert in the field and would like to help us with your expertise, please do join as a volunteer. Please volunteer to serve on our review panels. This experience, if you haven't done that in the past, is great for those who are planning to write grants for a particular program, as much as it is for those who are already established scientists in that area. So it is a great opportunity. So please do take advantage of it. It will be beneficial to both sides. With that, since we do not have any more questions, I would like to thank you all for joining us today. And as Amy said, we are all always available. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to those who presented here or to other NPLs in your area of interest. You will always get an answer, and so please feel free. Once again, thank you for your interest, and thanks to the team for the presentation.